I'm a columnist for the Washington Post. I've also written for New York Magazine, the New York Times. I cover the content creator industry, so I've written about some of the biggest content creators in the world. And I'm here to talk about how influencers can work with the media to get press coverage. So the most important thing when you're pitching yourself to a reporter is to basically understand what they write about. So it's really no point in reaching out to a political reporter if you want them to cover your new clothing line. So really research people's beats. And the best way to do that is literally just by looking on LinkedIn, seeing, if you see a profile, for instance, of another influencer that you like, click on that reporter's byline, see what else they write, and that's a good way to kind of find people. Other things that every story needs to have: newsworthiness, timeliness, relevance, and human interest. These are just core components of any good story. And you'll want to make sure that you kind of have these things in mind as you are pitching yourself. So, crafting a pitch. You want to tailor tailor your pitch to the outlet. So a lot of people write a press release about something, they spam it out to everyone, and it goes nowhere. And it's so disheartening. And people think, oh my God, does no one want to cover this? No, you just have to find sort of that right fit. The first thing you want to do is write a compelling subject line. Just think of the subject line when you're reaching out on email or Instagram. You know how you see in that Instagram preview, like what, those first few words. Make sure that it's compelling. Think of it as like the headline that you want your story to be about. And you want this content to be maybe some news you have or just some insight you have. Say something AI is taking off in the news. You just did a project leveraging AI, you can use that to kind of give expert commentary for a story. This is the most important one: building relationships with reporters. Reporters, I cannot even explain to you the amount of times we are on deadline and we will pretty much take a quote from anybody that's semi-coherent and will respond to our calls. So, you want to kind of be on the reporter's radar. So meet up with reporters, take them out to coffee, develop those long-term relationships just the way that you would a brand, right? Like, you guys all know what it's like to work with a brand when there's that brand that you really want to do a deal with. You're going to kind of cultivate those relationships and invest in those relationships and, meet up and keep in touch and send text messages, follow that reporter on Instagram. But for whatever reason, I think people don't think of the media that way. So it's just really helpful. I mentioned here as well, social media. I think we're all online more than ever today, and so are journalists. So comment on their Instagram page, follow them back, engage with them. It's just a way to keep it top of mind so that when you do reach out, the journalist recognizes your name. They're like, oh yeah, that girl, she's always tagging me or she's always commenting. It's just, that is like the most effective way to get media attention. Then, say you do get media attention, how to maximize your coverage. So say you gave a quote to a reporter for a piece. After that story, share the story, send a follow-up, send a thank you, keep in touch. Just keep that conversation going so it doesn't just end once your piece is out in the wild. And you can leverage this media, on your website for partnerships, speaking engagements. You really want to capitalize on each article because reporters are also kind of pack creatures, and I can promise you, even journalists at the New York Times are looking at smaller websites and saying, what are these places covering? And, should I do a story on that? So by sharing these stories, even if it's just a small blog and you're like, oh, I wish I got on a bigger website, it's just this small blog that wrote it up, share that because a journalist can see that you're getting coverage and it'll just make them want to cover you more. Just to review, you want to create a compelling pitch, you want to have some sort of exclusive information, and you want to develop relationships with reporters. I'll say one other thing. It's not written here, but I just figured I would sort of explain. A lot of people want their first story with a journalist to be a profile about themselves. We've all seen like the Forbes magazine. I think some of these guys have probably gotten stories like that. And it's really hard to get that right off the bat. So I always say when you first meet with a reporter, just offer to be a resource. Say, how can I help you? You know, are you looking for more information on YouTube? Would you like any kind of commentary for a trend piece? And just be there as a resource. And if you keep acting as a resource for that journalist, when it comes around and you have something to announce, and you're like, hey, you know, by the way, I have this new clothing line now, I have this big thing now, or I'd really looking to get a profile of myself. They're gonna think, well, that person has been so helpful to me. I would be honored to write something like that. So it's just, you know, it just takes a little time, but relationships, like everything in business, are key. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Taylor. Thanks for sharing so much insightful news.